Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here live with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so excited that you are here with us today. And we just want to, remind you that every day we have something different during the week. And if you are not able to be here with us online, please take advantage of all of the places that we are available. If you can't be in the Zoom session, you absolutely have access to every social that we are available on. So you could be on our YouTube. You could also be with us on Instagram, Facebook, or Meta, Twitch, X. We are just, trying to make sure that we are in places where people are so that they have access. And so this is really important to us. And we want to make sure that you know that we have also uploaded a lot of the newer sessions into our YouTube podcasting software. And so on our website, you can go there and see some of the newer sessions because they're in there. We have more than 100 sessions available for you to take advantage of and to rewatch or to watch if you've never seen them on all different types of topics. We do our Smarter Start Bootcamp on Mondays. And so we kind of have a sequence usually of a series of topics in Smarter Start. And right now we've been doing a series of topics there that are pretty exciting for people who are getting started in business. We just started yesterday working with inventors and product creators, people who are creating processes and a series of services that may be very different than anything else on the market. Well, we started a session yesterday that is going to kick off that area, and we'll be working with that topic for about the next 10 weeks. So we want you to not miss that, but you can always go and watch it on YouTube or see it on our website. About midway in the page, we have, all of those episodes available. And then, of course, on, actually on Smarter Start, I want you to know that, we do a lot of different kinds of things. So we're not just working with inventors, but in this series, we're going to be talking about people who invent not just products, but processes that are novel, different than maybe something that might be out on the market. And we're talking about how you protect it, how you innovate or iterate on top of it, how you get feedback from, the communities in which you serve so that you can make it better. So those are the kinds of things I want you to be aware of. And then we have on Tuesdays, we talk about our legacy products. And so we're, right in the middle of talking about how you live your legacy. And I want to really open up, that area because a lot of people don't realize that they're living their legacy now, regardless of the kind of legacy that they're building or what they think they're not necessarily building. They're living it out. And so people are watching you, whether it's your employees, your vendors, your people who are working with you or contractors, or even your children or people you might be passing the company down. They're watching the legacy that you are living out with your company. And so we want to talk about your culture, your core values, how do you make those things work for you? And then what kinds of products do you need to bring into your company to help, those who are working with you and alongside of you, whether that's insurance or education, or what kind of benefits can you offer? And so this particular next set of episodes that we're going to be doing on Tuesdays is really going to talk to people about, how they can make things better in the workplace for themselves and for those who are working alongside of them. And then, of course, on Wellness Wednesdays, we, are going to be having some different types of guests. I want to just prime you that Coach Crystal will be back soon with another episode. Coach Kevin had, we had a little difficulty with his last episode, getting all the things worked out, but to believe that he's got it worked out. So we'll be bringing him back soon. And we have a very, very, very special guest who will be coming to us that is amazing at what she does. She was a premier professor at Cornell University. And so she's going to be coming soon. We'll have her on to talk about her product and what it is that it's doing for people in their physical nature, and how it's also, making waves for those who are chiropractors and other doctors who need products to sell. Excuse me. But yes, so that's happening really soon on Wellness Wednesdays. And then, of course, on Tech Thursdays, we had a wonderful episode. Our last episode, we talked about how do we keep our company safe. We're going to be doing a series of episodes like that one to show how you can use your tech, to help your company and grow, but also to help it remain secure. And so we'll do a few more episodes in that area, because we think that it's very important for people to understand how do they protect their technologies and their ideas, and how do they protect the company, how do they protect their staff. So we'll talk about things about that. If you have a physical location, you need to know how to draw out the right kind of map, so that if there's a fire or any other type of natural disaster or something that requires that everyone exits the building, you have all of that in place, and you have a plan, if something happens where you guys get stuck in the building, if there's an active shooter, or if so. We're going to have some people coming on that will be helping us to develop out this part of the company, because this is the time of year when we start really ramping up. We have our Q4 summit coming up. So all of these things are very, very important, and we're going to be talking about them right here on our co-working session. So, and even some of you who may not be able to go to the full Q4 summit when it happens in November, you might be able to just see some snippets of it, because we're going to make them available on co-working. So we are just excited about, what we're doing and how we're making these catalog of classes and courses available to people and we're making it available free. We're making it available right here. We are giving it away so that you have, quality education for your business, and a lot of it. Okay. So you can choose what you want to work on and when. And then, of course, on Fridays, we have our Focus Fridays. And right now we're focusing on decision-making excellence, which we're, working our way through a series of episodes where we're talking about what it takes to make a good decision, and how you can make decisions, faster, better, how you can know what your cognitive biases are and the things that you need to do to work towards being able to be a better decision maker, and to create a culture of better decision makers around you, with those who work with you. And so that's what we've been working on Fridays. And so that's our whole lineup for the week. We just wanted to make sure you knew what it was before we jumped into our session today on mastering the inner game of focus and productivity. And if you'll bring my slides up, we're going to jump right in, because we want to make sure that you get the whole thing today. We don't want to skimp. And so we have been really intentional about what it is that we put before you, and making sure that it's quality material that you can utilize. And this particular episode I'm very excited about, because it's been planned for almost a whole, I want to say 9 or so months. It's been in the queue. And I think it's very important that people understand when there is a lull in productivity. Sometimes people don't know when there's a lull in productivity, and they don't really recognize that they are getting less and less productive. And it's important that, if there's an issue, that you are really beginning to understand what you need to do to fix it. Okay. Because the issues that we have when it comes to productivity can affect our whole teams. I mean, it's not just, something that when you're having a lull in creativity or productivity, that you can go somewhere and take a break and get refreshed and come back and you're okay. But that's not the long and short of it. It affects other things and other people. And sometimes you set in motion a trajectory, that could last months. And you have to be able to understand that if something is happening in your company, where people are not able to really demonstrate the level of productivity that is customary for your industry, for your company, more than anything, then there's something that you need to do about it. And so we're going to give some cues today. How do we master the inner game of focus and productivity, and what is it that we can do to unlock our full potential in that area? Because it is extremely important that you recognize that your potential never ends. Even the things that you leave here after you are gone, if you're no longer with us, you have gone, the way of that everyone has to go when they pass away, when they die. Your influence and the things that you have done will still be here. And so the whole goal when we are talking about mastering the inner game of focus and productivity is focusing on what it is that you're doing now, because you're building out your, creative legacy, your business legacy, your financial legacy, your intellectual property that you're leaving behind. All of that is being built. And so when you can come to the place of where you understand that your potential continues even though you might be gone, then you're going to do some things differently now when you're focusing in and you're creating and producing. Everything that we're putting on the internet now will always be here. And I am so clear that this is a catalog or a library that people will be able to go back to, and hopefully will, whoever picks up behind me will continue it. But the bottom line is that there will be something here that people can utilize, even though it might be years in the future. And so you want to be thinking about, how do I master this inner game so that I am able to put forth my best work now? And that best work now could end up being a product, a service, it could end up being a process. It could end up being, a company, it could end up being some of the best intellectual property that anybody ever knew existed. It could end up being a recipe. It could be a lot of things, but whatever it is, we want you to master that focus so that you can make it everything it's supposed to be the first time around. So let's take a look at, how do we overcome distractions and maintain deep work? Some of you guys may have never heard this concept of deep work. And so I want to really talk about it because there is a clue here when we talk about working, and working at our highest level, that indicates to us that there are times in the day, there might be times in our life, there might be times in our week and times in our month, where, we have intense focus. And when we have intense focus, that's what we call deep work. When we really are able to focus in and just get some stuff done. Okay. So we want to be able to overcome the distractions that keep us, from, focusing in and getting into the deep work. And we want to talk about what some of those are. So the thing is that we've got to first be able to understand what the triggers are that help us to, get distracted, because some things that we don't really pay attention to will seem to us very nominal issues. But really, when we're looking at them from a standpoint of what's the environment, what's the activity, what it is that caused me to lose focus, and, what is it that I can do in the future that will allow me to create a plan to minimize them. I never forget, last week I had a whole list of things, and I'm not one that is really a proponent of a to-do list per se. I have a ta-da list, but not a to-do list. And I'm going to tell you why, because for me, the to-do lists are distracting. I mean, just saying, they create for me, this feeling of anxiousness sometimes, the anxiety that goes along with when I have this long to-do list. And I just will look into these to-dos and I'll break down the to-dos down to objectives, and then I'll have even to-dos for those. And, so that doesn't work really for me in the guise of helping me to really become extremely productive. What I've come to understand that works better for me is the to-do list. And so I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about that in a future episode, but I want you to realize that sometimes excuse me, sometimes we create structures and situations, okay, that we think are really helpful to help us get things done, that actually cause us to really lose focus instead of keep focus. And so what I have come to understand is that I'm able to prioritize tasks better when I move things to where I do certain things on certain days. And I learned this a while back, and I might have talked about this in another session, but I have, created over the years of my being in business, a specific way that I do business so that I'm able to actually get things done. And if as long as I keep to the Tuesday, Thursdays, I'm working on this, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm working on this, or sometimes it might be Monday, Tuesday that I'm working on these particular things, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it might be something else. But at one point in time, I had even gone to a 4-day work week. And when I had one particular business, I had gotten down to a 3-day work week. And I'm telling you that having more intense focus and being able to do deep work gives you the ability to have, a 3-day work week. I read a book. Actually, I read a couple of books by some different authors on, having the 3-day work week or the 4-day work week, or, being able to really concentrate your attention in a way that makes sense. Some companies have even gone to having their employees work, Monday through Thursday, 10-hour days, and so they do that all summer, and then they're off for 3 days, to have intense focus on their family, and their other aspirations and things that they do. And they found it to be very successful. I know that when we had the 4-day work week here at Red, it was extremely successful, for when I had a lot more employees. Now we're working mostly with contractors, but when we had a lot more employees, having the 4-day work week was so impactful because it gave people the ability to front load everything that they needed to do for school or for their home life. And, work-life balance was a lot better. And even though we might have worked, we came to work Monday through Thursday a lot earlier. We started our day, and I think it was like 6 a.m. Central that we started. And we worked until about 2 p.m. because it was so hot in Texas. And I was just really trying to make sure that people got out of there at a time where, before, it was like the real heat of the day, which was 4 p.m. where we were located. And it was so impactful to see people, they were so excited about being there early, and we got some things done. And sometimes we knocked off at 1, instead of 2. And it was just a lot of concentrated focus, and the energy was just exciting. And so, but we also noticed, okay, when we went back to the 5-day work week, that for the first hour, there were just so many triggers to get people off focus. I mean, I saw a lot of people hanging out around the coffee machine. It was hard to get people going. And so I had to really see what it is that we could do. And we even had a meeting about how do we, increase our productivity and make it so that people are not triggered. Some of the things that actually triggered people were a little bit different for one group other than the others. We had one set of people that really liked a darker environment because they felt like, the lighting that was really, really bright, just was a lot for them. And so we saw in some of our, more creative times in the afternoon, people would be turning their lights down. And I was thankful that we had the ability to use lighting that gave us, levels of light, So these are just things that I want you to be thinking about, because you have to be able to identify your own triggers, especially if you're working from home. Some of us are working from home and we don't even realize what our triggers are, and I know that for me, when I was working from home in Texas and I had the grandchildren there, I had to create time with them in my day so that I would not have issues where I would become distracted and couldn't get back on focus to do the work that I needed to do. So that leads me to time blocking. What that created for me was the ability for me to block out, uninterrupted times of the day where I had deep work, deep focus. And I would go into, we had there in our location there, and this is before we had our bigger office, we had a co-working office there and inside of our apartment complex. And so we were in a kind of a luxury apartment setup that was for people who worked. And they had the co-working sessions that you could set up where you could do 2 hours or 3 hours at a time in a very nice, setting. You could use the conference room, which had glass walls. I mean, it was just really nice. Or you could use the smaller cubes if you choose to do that. And so I chose at that time to get up and go in there about 5 in the morning. And at 5 in the morning, I would work from 5 until about noon, and then I would come back, and that gave me the ability to have some focused time to really get some things done. And then I could, spend the rest of the afternoon with my husband and the grandkids, and try to help them through their schoolwork because they were at the time homeschooled, and so we were doing a lot, in the afternoon. So they did their schoolwork in the afternoon, and that gave me the opportunity to work with them with their schoolwork in the afternoon. So I don't know what your setup is, but I'll tell you this, that if you use the time blocking system, I can guarantee you that when you are putting yourself, sometimes you may be able to just do 1 hour, or 2 hours of focused, deep work, but you will get more productivity out of that 2 hours than you will get when you have, a full day and there's so much access to you, or you have all kinds of other things that are triggers to keep you from actually being able to focus. So, you want to think about things to help you maximize your productivity. What is your time frame? Can you work for an hour and a half of, uninterrupted focus time? And this does not mean you're not taking a bio break, you're not getting your water. Okay. We want to get our water in. You're not standing. Sometimes I have to stand to work, and I plan to get a standing desk in this office soon. I have one in the office in Texas, and I just absolutely love it. And in the office in Florida, I believe we have one there, and the one in California, we're looking at the possibility of getting that as well, because what that does is it gives me the ability to not be sitting for hours and hours on end, but instead to be able to stand for a period of time when I'm, doing the Zoom sessions, or even when I'm working on a project, and I even have a stand mode that my phone goes into, or my watch will also tell me it's time to stand now, so that I'm just able to do that even though I've blocked out this time that I'm working on something in particular. I don't have to do it all sitting. And so I just wanted to make sure that I shared that, because again, this is Wellness Wednesday, and we're talking about how do we do work well. Okay. How do we, do business well? And so the other thing is doing a digital detox, limiting your use of smartphones, social media, and other digital distractions for a period of time to maintain a clear mind. I have what's called clear spaces. And so we have created a couple of clear spaces here in our home. We have, a couple of porches. And so these porches here in this location allow us to be able to go outside, and we don't necessarily have to take our socials with us. We don't have to take the phones with us. We actually can position ourselves so that we are, completely detoxing for, an hour. Okay. Or even 2 hours away from, the devices. And I have some other devices that are, they don't have LED lighting behind them and things of that nature. They're, a lot less electronic, magnetic frequencies involved in those devices, and it allows me to go out and sit and read. I have a very, very old Kindle that's got the green backlight. Okay, that tells you how old it is, and I'll have a lot of my books on there, and so but we have a huge library as well, which allows us to go and just get books, physical books. I know who does that anymore, but I've got physical books right here, in the office, and I'll tell you that it makes sense for me to be able to just pick up and detox, go to the other side of the office, turn off all of my computers and my devices, my iPads, and sit in a chair and just read. And I can tell you that there is so much satisfaction in being able to do that, because it makes, the body's focus time, you know, really intense, and it makes the clear space of being able to just read and relax and just calm yourself a lot more valuable. And I just want to share that you need to, if you're doing a digital detox, you need to try to make sure it's in a place where you can actually detox and you're not so tempted to just keep picking up your phone and looking for an email or a text message. Okay. So what is the power of mindfulness for productivity? All right. And we've talked about mindfulness before on Wellness Wednesdays. We talked about how useful it is and being able to position yourself to be mindful in all things. But I wanted to really concentrate right now on the kind of mindfulness that is really helpful for productivity. So the one thing that it does is it helps us to cultivate awareness. When you develop a heightened sense of self-awareness, to recognize when your mind is wandering and to bring it back to the present moment, that is such a valuable tool. A lot of people don't realize when they have wandered, or they realize it but they don't necessarily do anything about it. They don't know how. And so I am saying to you that I use breathing, sometimes to separate my times of, if I'm seeing myself becoming, a little less productive and I'm having a moment, then I'll take a bio break. And that bio break does include me taking the time to, put some intense breathing, guiding breaths in between me and whatever it is that I'm working on, and then going back to it, it just kind of gives me that, okay, refocus, that inner prompt to get back on task. And cultivating the kind of awareness that you might need to cultivate could take some time. But the bottom line is that as long as you are able to recognize that your productivity has waned or your attention has waned from what you're doing, and you find yourself doodling and your mind is not on what you're doing, if you're able to recognize that, then you're able to course correct, because now you can say, you know what, I need to take 5 minutes. Or I need to take 10 minutes. Let me go sit and just breathe. Let me sit and just be still, for this 5 minutes, so that I can come back and just really dive back in. Sometimes it takes that. I've taken a 15-minute nap. And I kid you not, that 15-minute nap has so helped me become more effective at my, craft. And when I'm having to really work on something, I'm also a tax professional. And I'll tell you that during tax season, it is so difficult. And we have like 4 tax seasons, okay? People think the tax season is only in April. But let me just say this to you. A lot of people, don't realize that for tax professionals, it's an all year thing. There are many, many times when people are, who have gotten an extension, of course, then now they have to turn everything in, in later months. So we have an extension that has to be turned in September, one in October, one in November. So for the tax professional, you're not just looking at the March dates and the April dates and the May dates. You're March, April, May, and then you're September, October, November. And then there's some people who are just late filers who, then you're dealing with them and doing cleanup work at, from January to December. So it's not a situation where we just have this time off. But, what I have found that during those times of intense focus, when I'm working the tax filings, I have to get a nap. I did, just because the numbers, and all of the work that goes into wanting to get the best possible refund, or the most likely scenario for my clients, for my tax planning, you know, um, premise, or even for, the tax advisory that has to go in. I need to be fresh, and I can't be so focused in on the numbers that I'm not paying attention to. These are people's lives, okay? And so I've got to be able to communicate with them in a way and manner that is appropriate, because sometimes they're very stressed around taxes. And so, the naps are really important. And I see Coach Crystal is on with us today, and she said naps are necessary at all times, LOL, okay? And it's true. It really is true that it's necessary, for us to be able to take advantage of the naps. Okay. All right. So, what are some of the other things we can do with our mindfulness? Well, we can manage our emotions. We need to use mindfulness techniques to regulate emotions like stress and anxiety and frustration that can hinder your productivity. I was, available, thank God, for a situation that was going on here. And we worked from home in this location on the East Coast. And I tell you, it was just a very stressful time, because there were lots of paperwork that needed to be done this past week. And my husband was working on one set of it while I was working on another set of it. And there were things that just were not adding up. And we were trying to make sure that we got it all straightened out, because there were the time frames that we were working on it. The offices at the IRS was closing at a certain time, and I mean, we were diligently trying to, get, it done, and get access to the part of the software that the IRS has, at the time before they closed. And I mean, everything that we did, we still missed that time frame. We had to wait till the next morning. It wasn't a deadline, but it was a time frame that we had set that we needed to have it done. And so I remember him being very frustrated and having a lot of anxiety. And it was like, okay, we need to just take a break. Let's use some mindfulness techniques here, and let's focus our attention on everything else other than this right now. Let's get some food in us. Let's get, a little bit of a nap, if we can, just to relax, and we'll jump right back into it, because we do want to make sure that we complete this part of the task tonight, but we'll have to do that other part in the morning. And it was so beneficial, because when we got up, we were much more focused. We put another hour in, and it was an hour that made sense. Okay. Not an hour that was like, oh, okay. But it made sense, because we got my part done, his part done, and the next morning we were able to get the other portions done. So I'm just saying that for a lot of people, using the mindfulness techniques to manage their emotions is going to be key, because it helps them to actually refocus their attention, back on what they were working on, or on the next thing, so that they are not, stressed out, or burnt out, based on what it is that they're needing to do. And this is very important for people who work, their own companies, because I have seen this occur, that burnout is a real thing. And people who own their own companies, or are contractors, they're self-employed, many times suffer burnout a lot more than people who work for other people. People who work for other people in corporate America many times are able to walk away from the office and leave everything in the office. But a lot of us, we walk out of our offices into our bedrooms or into our living rooms. And so, stuff is still lingering, and it's hard for us to take our attention off of it. So we have to be able to understand, how to get, refocused, and how to take some time away. And then enhancing our focus, having that mindfulness training can improve your ability to concentrate on the task at hand and filter out the distractions. Being able to understand how to breathe, and being able to know how to, have it take a time for a reset, utilizing time blocking, utilizing some of the other tools that, are a part of the productivity suite, is what we call it. All right. So let's look at how do we harness our energy for the maximum output. Okay. And this is very important, because when you understand your own rhythms, what is your natural energy peak? and what is the time when you normally will lull. When you can see that, you can optimize your schedule and your task accordingly. I came to understand myself better by watching my grandchildren. And I have to say this because I have one grandchild that would work really, really well from like 2 in the afternoon till 6. I mean, if I gave her something from 2 to 6, she would knock it out. But from 8 a.m. in the morning until like noon before she got her lunch, she was just really, really, a bear to really get focused in on her schoolwork. And so because we were at that time, we were working in a homeschool group, and we had learning coaches, and there were teachers that would go online. The teacher helped me to understand the rhythm that my granddaughter needed to work through in order for her to be more productive. And so when I learned her energy peak and her lull time, it's like, oh, I understood, so she only needs to be working for 2 hours. So we did a block schedule. We did a block schedule for she and her brother, and it worked out really well. They did the block schedule 2 hours in the morning, or not. It wasn't really morning for them, but for me, it was morning. Because at one point I was in a different time zone than they were, but for them it was afternoon. Okay. And by them starting in the 2 hours in the afternoon, and then 2 more hours, an hour in between, and then 2 more hours, later on into the evening, they were just very productive in that time. Now I looked at them and I said, okay, how does that work with me? What are my peak times? Well, my peak time is really, really early for a lot of people, but it's a peak time that, there's nothing going on. It's super quiet. I'm able to jump into what I'm doing and not have to concern myself with my phone or my text messages or anything like that. And I can absolutely get into what I'm doing and optimize that part of my schedule. And then, by the time I start having meetings, I don't feel like I'm so unproductive because I've done a lot before I get to the meeting, and I'm able to really focus in on what I'm meeting about and not be thinking about the paperwork that I didn't get finished, or looking at the emails that I didn't get seen, or that didn't get seen. I see Coach Crystal saying optimizing your do not disturb time. Yes. I have a do not disturb and a do not disturb 2. So when I have D&D 2 on, nobody can get through. And my D&D, messages are coming, but they're coming quietly, and I can still see what it is that I need to see. And it works out very, very well for me. So that's something that you might want to think about. Having these intense focus times might go for creating a do not disturb 2, okay? A more intense do not disturb, whereas the other time might be just, a quieter focus, but not necessarily where nobody can get through. Okay. And then you want to incorporate your breaks, the rest periods, because they are essential, and having that recharge time, that'll give you the ability to sustain the higher levels of productivity. What I have found is when I can take, the 2 hours in between and then jump back into everything, man, it is just so much more effective. I did it on Monday, and it just really helped me a lot. I took a nap, and that nap was an hour and a half, but I was able to just really put my legs up and, just have my mind completely at rest. And for part of that time, I was listening to some frequency music, and then, I just drifted on into a deeper sleep, and that theta just really did what I needed it to do, because when I came back to, an alpha activity, I was able to jump in there and be a lot more productive and focused. So prioritizing self-care, you hear us talk about this a lot. Maintaining a healthier lifestyle with proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep, it does really support our energy and focus. And we've got to do it. Others can't do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. All right. So what are some productivity secrets of successful entrepreneurs? I see the brothers here. Let's see what the secrets are. Okay. Well, of course, we talked about the time blocking, prioritizing the schedule and scheduling tasks to have that maximum efficiency, strategic planning, setting some clear goals, those SMART goals, right? And breaking them down into actionable steps, or, objectives that will give us the ability to get it all done. And then having the mindfulness practices that we talked about, incorporating some meditation and reflection to maintain our focus and clarity. And then, of course, managing our energy by having a daily routine that is optimized, whether that means that you get up very early and you work until 1 or 2, or that means that maybe you start your day later, in the day on some days. So this is a consideration, and I believe we're getting ready to move to this, because in the winter we do change our schedule up a little bit, but we're, considering the moving to, not starting our work until 10 or 11 o'clock on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, okay, because our Tuesdays and Thursdays, because what that does is that gives us the ability to have a later time frame that we can work for people who lead, these later appointments, but it doesn't make it so that we're working 12-hour days to accommodate our people that need later appointments. So this is something that, we have to consider, just to make sure that we're managing our energy and we're not ending up at midnight saying, man, we worked a 16-hour day today. Okay. And I see Coach Crystal is saying music therapy is great also. Yeah, sound and music therapy is absolutely important. I use sound therapy a lot, and some of you guys know that I have a music therapy background, that this is one of my areas of practice in my alternative health practice. And so it's very important that you create for yourself, an environment that has atmospheric noises that help to induce productivity. And I want to say that, maybe you live, I know when we were in Hawaii, and we, have to go there, to serve our clients. And now we've been gifted a place there. And so we'll be able to, once it's all fixed up and everything was working the way that we need it to, we'll be able to go there more frequently. And when we serve our clients, we don't have to stay, we've never stayed in a hotel per se, but we've stayed at a resort once there. But what I'll say to you is the atmospheric noises of Hawaii are amazing, because we don't ever stay in an area where we can't hear the roosters in the morning and we can't hear all of the rushing of the waves and things of that nature. It just is such a calming place. And even though we've had to do work while we're there, it just makes it so nice to work with that in the background. Now here we have a kind of a waterfall in the backyard, and so it does give us that same feeling of, having the water noises and the atmospheric noises, and we do have chickens, and so that does help a lot. And it is something that, gives us, again, when we go out on the porch, we are separated away from the work life, and we now have this other, atmosphere that does help us to focus in. So I will say that you need to figure out what you need to do. When I was in more of an apartment life, and when I have to go to our other locations where we're staying maybe in an Airbnb, or where we're in a place of where we can't really cultivate the country life that we like, okay, we will have our diffusers with us. We pack them in our bags and we take them with us. I have one that actually plays sounds. It plays the birds chirping and it plays the waterfall. But you can so do that with your devices. You can create that by going to Calm. There's an app that you can put on your phone or put on your computer or put on your device, so that you can get that break with the atmospheric noises. So thank you, Coach Crystal, for that, for reminding us how very important music therapy and sound therapy are. Okay, so how do you develop a focused and intentional mindset? Well, there are 4 things here, and we want to really look at these 4. Again, we started off by talking about distractions, and so now we want to talk about what we do with them. We eliminate them. Create your environment that's conducive, that minimizes your external and internal distractions. I have done a lot to create an office for myself, even when I was in a very small living space. So in a very small living space, when, I just had a closet, and some of you guys have heard this story before, because I told it on one of our other episodes, how I took instead of me having, the full reign of the walk-in closet for my clothes, I actually minimized the amount of clothes I had in there and created a small office for myself that gave me the ability to have, the minimal distractions and the maximum of peace. And I put, a set of blinds up that were actually, they were curtains. They weren't even blinds, but they were the right color that brought me into a certain mindset and space that was really amazing. And it was just a real small, really small walk-in closet, but it was the biggest office I could get in that smaller apartment. And I loved it. And my husband, he used to crack up because he would come in there and he said, "You really did this. You really made this into an office." I said, "Yes, I did." And I'm so excited with it. And it was great for that particular season of our life. When we moved to a bit larger place, I actually did the same thing, but in that place I had, the ability to separate out the office in an office that was a bigger office for him and and then my office was the closet. I chose to have the closet, and it just made a wonderful space as well, different than the other one, but it was still a nicer space. When we got to our, townhouse, which was a great space in California, I absolutely love it. It was on 3 floors. And so I had an office on the balcony, which was an outdoor office. I had an office on the 3rd floor up, and it was just a very nice space that allowed me, I had all the water features in there, and I did all the things that I needed to do to make it work for me. Because it was on the 3rd floor, I even created a kitchenette up there so that we didn't have to walk all the way down to the 1st floor to have our lunch. And so it just really made sense. So what can you do in your environment to eliminate the distractions? How can you create the absolute most wonderful environment in your space for you? One of our clients who I coach with, I talked to her about creating a space that was unique to her. And so the next time we got online for her session, she was able to show me her space. And I was so excited because she painted the walls. She put up beautiful artwork. And it was just a really, the space wasn't tiny, but it wasn't huge, but it became so her, and it gave her the ability to be more productive. So I'm thinking, when you're looking at this, you've got to be able to sketch it out, talk to some people, get all of the information you need to get to make sure that it's going to work exactly the way you want it to work, but make it yours so you can eliminate the distractions. And then set some intentional goals. Define some clear, measurable, achievable, those SMART goals I talked about, to provide a roadmap for your productivity efforts. Are you going to work 3 days a week, in intense focus? Are you going to work, all 5 days, but you're only going to work a certain amount of hours and then take a big break? Are you going to use the time blocking in the day? Are you using time blocking on the days? How are you going to make those goals help you become more productive? And then track, that those goals, because you need to be able to understand what worked and what didn't work. And don't be afraid to change it up if it's not working, because that's very, very important. Now you could also practice the self-awareness. Remember, we talked about that, how it's very important for you to even be aware when you're waning, when you're wandering, when you have these things not, working the way they're supposed to, so that you can reflect on the strengths and the weaknesses and the optimal working conditions. Crystal, our coach Crystal is saying, be willing to fail fast when something is not working. Ditch it and do something different if you have to, and understand that until you get to that thing that works, it's not failure. Okay. It is just absolutely feedback. And it's helping you to understand what it is that you need to do, to make a better environment for yourself. So practice the self-awareness so that you can see what works. Okay. And then cultivate some discipline. Develop the, productivity habits that you might need and the routines that are going to sustain the productivity over the long term. That's what you need to be looking at, not just the short term, but over the long term. How can I make for me a better set of habits that serve me? Okay, because your habits are designed to serve you. And when they're there and they're right, they help the brain save effort. But when they're not right, they help you to become more distracted and to become less productive. And so that's not what we want. We want to cultivate the discipline that we need. Okay. So, how do we build some productive habits? Well, we got 3 areas here that we're going to concentrate on. We're going to pinpoint the specific habits and behaviors that contribute to or hinder the productivity. You got to see, are my habits serving me? And if they're not serving me, okay, these are the ones that I want to replace with something that serves me better. All right. Then you want to plan and to create the detailed action plan. Is going to really take some time to think about what it is that these things are doing and how they're not working, and how do we work in the productive habits into my daily routines. And then the implementation plan, practice and reinforce those new habits until they become automatic or effortless. That is what you want to do. And these are our key takeaways today. We want to make sure that we're overcoming distractions, identifying our triggers, practice some time blocking, and embrace the digital detox to maintain some deep focus. All right. That deep work. All right. Then harness the mindfulness, using mindfulness techniques to cultivate self-awareness, manage our emotions, and enhance our focus. That's going to be key. And then, of course, optimize your energy, understand your rhythms, and take your breaks when you need to. Prioritize self-care so that you can be, fully productive. And lastly, develop productive habits. Eliminate distractions. If the habits are not serving you, get rid of them. Set intentional goals and cultivate discipline for your long-term success. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose with Co-working Live with Red Wine, and we have been so excited that you've been here with us to the end, and we will see you again next time.